Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 books I have read in 2017 thus far. And at the same time I'm going to be painting my nails, so deal with that. I'm going to be talking about these in the order that I read them, so let's crack on. So one of the first books that I read in 2017 was a poetry collection, and that was Kate Tempest's Let Them Eat Chaos. This is a long poem that is written for performance purposes, and you can actually listen to the entire thing on Spotify. So if you can do that, I would highly recommend it. This is about 7 neighbours on the same London street, and it's set in one night. It looks at these people's various different circumstances, and we get a little look into each of their lives. A storm breaks out over London and it brings them outside to finally connect with one another. This is about indifference, it's about alienation, it challenges what divides us. There's a political undertone to this while the stories remain very personal. It becomes universal in how specific it is. It's a really fantastic poetry collection and I would highly recommend it. The next book I would like to talk about is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. This is about a Chinese-American family and is set in the 1970s in Ohio. The body of a girl named Lydia is found in a local lake. This story follows the impact that has on those around her, but particularly her 2 parents. It's about the origin stories of that relationship and the family. It is about secrets, and it reminds me that more often than not, you don't really understand someone's story. You don't know how they've become the person that they are now, even with those who you think you're closest to in the world. There's also a lot of discussion of race and gender in this book and the intersections of the two. Celeste Ng has another book coming out later this year and I am so excited for that. It's one of my most anticipated releases of 2017. Anyway, I'm finished painting my nails now, so I can properly pay attention to you. Next up is a non-fiction book, and that is Amir O'Toole's Girls Will Be Girls. This is a book that I kind of knew I would love going into it. This is a book about gender performativity. It is about the roles we play, conforming to expectations and stereotypes. It looks at how these expectations and stereotypes are so deeply embedded in our society and challenges why we just go along with them. Amir O'Toole is an incredible writer. She manages to explain really complex subject matters. She's literally challenging our social norms in this book, but she does it in a way that's really accessible, really anecdotal, and her anecdotes are really funny. She comes across like the type of person that you really just want to sit down and have a chat with. One of the things I particularly enjoyed about this book was that it is from a sort of Irish perspective. Amir O'Toole is an Irish writer, and me being Irish myself, there were a lot of things that I kind of related to. It's a fantastic book, and if you are interested in gender and how we perform our gender, you will really enjoy this book. I think this is a fantastic book for people who have read a lot about gender theory and people who haven't read anything at all about it and want to be educated. This is a book that I think everyone should read. I have another non-fiction book here, and it is called Love and Sex with Robots by David Levy. This is a book that I bought because I was doing a sci-fi assignment and story on sex robots. And this book looks at the history of having sex with objects, those objects being human-like, and its progression towards sex robots. It looks at how we build relationships with technology, examines what it means to be human. It's a really in-depth look at a growing industry. It's a book about sex, it's a book about technology, it is a book about philosophy. I didn't agree with everything in this book, or I don't know if I agree with everything in this book, but either way, it was a fantastic source for what I wanted to learn about. And again, it's a non-fiction book about something that is quite intricate and complex, but presented in a way that is really, really accessible. And as you can tell by the amount of sticky tabs I've put on it, it was quite useful for my assignment. And again, another non-fiction book that I want to talk about is Women in Sport. This is a book that looks at the history of women's sport and looks at really important, influential, and impactful figures in women's sport. It goes right the way back in history, all the way up to the present day. The story of incredibly inspirational and powerful women from a range of different backgrounds and a range of different abilities and disciplines and sports. It looks at the struggles they faced because of their gender or their race or their disability, how they overcame those challenges and the successes they've become. Or in some cases, how a biased system let them down. The illustrations in this book are also wonderful. I don't know if this book is out yet. I think it comes out at the start of July, so it may be just come out and I had an e-arc copy of it, but it is so wonderful that I would really like to get a physical copy of it because it's just a beautiful, important, informative book. Girls need the role models that are in this book. The next book I want to talk about is Homegoing by Ya Jessie. It is a novel of extraordinary breadth. This looks at 3 years of Ghanaian heritage. It begins in the 18th century with 2 sisters. One sister is married off to an Englishman and lives a life of relative comfort, and the other sister becomes a victim of the slave trade. We then have 2 threads which follow their families through history. This book looks at how the past influences the present and why race and slavery are still incredibly relevant today, because they have still left these traces, very visible traces. This is an astonishingly well written book, and though we only have brief glimpses into each character's life as we go through each generation, each of their stories leaves a powerful impact. It's just a masterfully written book. Next up, I want to talk about Sophias Not Obliged by Ayesha Malik. This tells the story of a young Muslim woman living in London. She works in publishing and ends up deciding to write a book about the Muslim dating experience. Her parents are very focused on her finding a husband, and Sophia wants to find some happiness for herself as well. This is kind of branded as the Muslim Bridget Jones. If you've heard about this book, you will have heard that before, and that's very much what it is. It's not a particularly literary book. The prose style won't blow you away with its beauty, but I'm putting this on my top books of the year so far list because of the reading experience of it. It was an absolute joy, like the Bridget Jones books, to spend some time with this character. It's like just keeping up with a friend's life, while simultaneously I was learning about an experience that was different to my own. For a similar reason, I'm also putting The Secret Lives of the Amir Sisters by Nadia Hussein on this list. All of the books I'm going to talk about from this point on are books that I've just featured in my June wrap-up, so if you've seen that, soz for the repetition. But The Secret Lives of the Amir Sisters is about 4 sisters of different ages and the different life experiences they have, their own engagement with their faith. We have one sister who lives in London. She's an artist. She's very strong and independent. We have another sister who discovers something that she is shocked about her own identity, and it's about her coming to terms with that, as well as her dealing with body image. We have one sister who is dealing with the discovery of her husband's secrets, and we have the teenage sister who is dealing with difficulties at school, internet popularity, and working out her own identity in relation to her faith. I love the different perspectives in this novel, and I really love books that are about family relationships, and it's really nice to see a book about sisters as well. I've not really heard anyone else talking about this book. I don't know why it's kind of gone under the radar a bit. If you have read the Sophia Khan books, then I think you would really enjoy this one. I think this is the only children's book that has been on the list, but another of my favourite books that I have read this year is Goodnight Mr. Tom by Michelle Magorian. This is a book that is set at the breakout of the Second World War, and we follow a young boy named Will as he is sent away from London to live with a man named Thomas Oakley. We look at his developing relationship with this man, the friendship and father-son bonds that develop. We look at Will's difficult and abusive relationship with his mother, and scenes with his mother are very uncomfortable. She's not a very stable or kind person, but this is contrasted massively by the incredibly warm relationship between Tom and Will. There are so many tender moments in this book, and I think it encapsulates something that children's literature does really well, which is allowing children the space to deal with difficult topics while in a safe environment. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book. As I said, this list has gone in the order that I read the books, but I am finishing up with my favourite book of the year so far, and that is The Cows by Dawn O'Porter. This is a book about not following the herd. In this book, we are looking at 3 different women with very different circumstances, but they are all dealing with their relationships with motherhood, their romantic relationships, their familial relationships, their relationship with technology, their relationship with their work. We spend time with Cam, who is an incredibly successful blogger. She openly discusses sex with younger men, masturbation, not wanting to have children, and the backlash she faces because of that decision. We look at how that makes it difficult for her to connect with her own mother. And through her blog post, we engage with the contradictions and conflicts in contemporary feminism in a very productive manner. Next up, we have Stella, who provokes both shock and sympathy simultaneously. She's coming to terms with the loss of her identical twin sister and her mother to cancer, and struggling to accept the fact that she has the BRCA gene, which means she has an 85% chance of getting the cancer that killed her family. She's desperate to have a baby. She has a year to do it before she has to have preventative surgery. She comes up with a crazy plan in order to get a baby. Finally, we have Tara, and she's the character that I connected to the most in this novel. She is a loving mother to Annie and is trying to balance parenthood with her career and feeling like she's compromising on both. Tara is also a woman with needs and desires, and after she has a really fantastic date, something happens which will change her life forever. The three lives become simultaneously interwoven and becomes a celebration of female friendships, even unexpected ones. It's funny, it's friendship focused, and it is fantastically feminist. It's a brilliant book, and I would urge everyone to read it. It's brilliant. I would be very surprised if this one doesn't make it onto my top 10 books of the year overall. And I think this video is going to be really interesting to look back on at the end of the year, see which books will make it onto my top 10 books of the year list. There are a few that I've spoken about that while I have really enjoyed them, I would be surprised if I don't read something better by the end of the year, or something that I've enjoyed more. Have you read any of these books before? Let me know down below. Also, let me know what your favourite book of the year so far is. If you've made a top 10 video or anything like that, let me know and I will make sure that I check out if I haven't done so already. I hope you're all well, and I will talk to you guys very soon.